Welcome to Mindful Leadership, Transforming Lives, with your host, Singh. This is where leadership meets purpose, presence, and passion. In today's fast-paced, high-pressure world, we face a leadership crisis. Too often, teams are led by managers who lack empathy, clarity, and vision, leaving individuals uninspired, disconnected, and undervalued. But it doesn't have to be this way. Great leadership isn't born, it's built. The end game: empower your leadership, inspire the world. Every week, join me, your host Singh, as we tackle the gaps in leadership and life coaching head on, learning how mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and compassion can redefine success. This isn't just another podcast, it's a mission to fill the void left by ineffective leadership. And it's not just about leadership in business. Life coaching for leaders and new executives is at heart of this journey. Ready to rise above the noise and lead with clarity, purpose, and impact? Join a global movement dedicated to reshaping the future of leadership, one mindful moment at a time. Let's begin.
Welcome back to another episode of Mindful Leadership, transforming your life on the Transformation Network. Today, I'm excited. A good friend of mine joining us and giving us some wisdom. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Dan, would you mind telling our audience the beauty that you give to this community?
Sure, and I appreciate your kind words. For those who are tuning in, my name is Dan Cunio, and I am the Chief Operating Officer of the law firm Malone Hatley. We practice family law and trust and estates, basically estate planning, and it's good to be on your show here. And one of the things that we've been really working on, and I know you're going to get into it, is this idea and concept of people over profit. And so I'm excited to talk about that.
Dan, I also recollect that you have two podcasts. Would you quickly give a brief about what those two are?
I'd love to. Our first podcast is I Now Pronounce You Divorce, and our second podcast is The Business Blueprint, both going into their second season.
Oh, wow. That's a lot for our listeners. So, Dan, I know Malone Hatley is into Inc. 500, 5,000 firm, right? Two podcasts, and you save hundreds of families a year. So on the surface, people see the numbers, the rankings, the growth. But if I asked for your team what accomplishments they are proudest of in last 12 months, what would they say?
Oh, I'd hope that they'd say, we don't look at the growth as far as from a number perspective. It's more of we get to help out all these families and individuals that are coming to us a lot of times in their roughest part of their life. They're not in a good situation. And so the fact that they're putting their trust in us, that to me is huge. And then the growth, of course, is nice, but it's allowing us to be able to really serve and help a lot of families across the nation.
Behind every successful story, there is a thought that once come to you as a leader. I'm not sure we'll make it through this. Can you take us to exact moment and what happened, what shifted, and what pivoted for the growth?
For me or the firm?
Both.
Okay. Well, for me, I don't know. That's a hard question, right? Because I feel like I'm still learning and I never want to stop learning. And there's days where I feel like I've got this, and there's days where I'm like, man, what the heck am I doing? I guess that imposter syndrome kind of sinks in, which it's good because it always challenges me. My thought for myself is my best today is not my best tomorrow, meaning that I always want to continue to strive to do better, whether that's leading my teams, whether that's leading the company, whether that's helping out more families. I just want to continue to strive to go above and beyond. And I'm hoping that those team members who are part of my team can see that. And so from a personal perspective, I'm always learning. And I think that's always going to be the biggest challenge for any leader out there is we don't know it all. And those who think that they do, that's not leading. And leading is always going to be challenging. For the firm, I would say where I sit, it's exciting to finally see all this hard work come to fruition because we have a lot of teams, and on each team just a lot of great individuals who truly do put that that blood, sweat, and tears equity into it, and to as I reflect back on a lot of these meetings that we were in, just ideas that we were discussing, things that we were just outlining. And, sometimes it was like, oh, well, maybe we can get into this market and help out the families here. And it's like, I don't know if that's going to ever happen. But yeah, once we put pen to paper and we really start executing, the switch was, okay, we moved from, the offices and the locations in Virginia to markets outside of Virginia. So my answer would be seeing that switch from outside of Virginia into Florida, into South Carolina, and now across Texas. That's kind of was that switch for me.
If I little bit expand that question, and we always talk about leaders modeling themselves for their team, and one key word that we always use is vulnerability. So I have got two-part question here. We discussed this, right? So family law is not abstract, right? It's deeply human.
Right.
How do you personally recover after sitting with someone at their lowest point? And what recommendation you would give others in those situations?
Sure. Well, this is something that we really try to teach and have our newer attorneys kind of try to emulate what we do because you're right, it's tough. You're getting people at their worst. You've got great people who are at their worst, and they're now divulging or airing their dirty laundry to you because they need to. It's not because we want the gossip and we want to know just for our own sake. It's we have to know these details so we can really protect you and zealously advocate for you. But the emotions run high, and you have to learn that this person that's sitting in front of you probably isn't at their best, and it's probably extremely very uncomfortable, at least for them to say, okay, this is what I did, or this is what's happened to me, and this is how it's affecting me and making me feel. And you need to be able to show the emotion of empathy and really just try to listen. That's really the key right there. Let them have their voice, their say, listen to what they're saying, and then ask questions. You want to be engaging because the questions will lead, at least from a practitioner standpoint, okay, these are some of the risks that I'm seeing. This is what we need to do. And then you try to just hopefully get them to feel a little bit more comfortable and at ease and letting you know this is what's going on and these are my goals. So they know that you're in it to protect them. And it's really just trying to break down some of those barriers of being transactional. And it's not of, okay, well, here's the issue in cases, what we're going to do. Here's your risk. This is what you're looking at and move on. You want to show that compassion, that human side to it, because once you develop that relationship, then you're gaining that trust, some on the leadership side, but it could transcend into the client side because you want to have that relationship and that trust so the client can trust you so they know that you're looking out truly for their best interest and not that you're just either checking a box or they're just some form of a dollar sign.
Wow, wow. That's very, very deep. So empathy, and in mindful practice, we always talk about empathy. What does your morning look like? I mean, do you have rituals or practice that you have created on days you're walking into a case that will test every ounce of empathy you have got?
For those, fortunately, I haven't had one in a while, but I have had some highly contested litigated cases. And it's just, taking well, for me, taking a deep breath, just kind of relaxing myself, making sure that, I have reviewed my notes and know exactly what needs to be done, but then also reminding myself that I'm here to help someone. This is why I went to law school, is because I want to be able to help somebody. And this person sitting in front of me needs my help. Right, wrong, or indifferent, they need help. And so I want to be able to go in there and truly put my best foot forward for them and be able to have that mindset of not judging them. We're all human. It's going to happen. But we have to be able to set that aside and know, okay, I'm going to be in this meeting because I want to be able to help this person.
Wow. You mentioned something in your introduction, so let's go back there for a second. Most law firms talk about billable hours and outcomes. You talk about people over profit. So my question is, why does that strategy make business sense, not just moral sense?
Well, on its face, and those probably listening are thinking, "What the heck? This makes no sense." But at the firm, we like thinking differently, and in leadership, I want to be able to think differently too. And it's the old school was profit over people, but when you start digging into it and kind of look at some of the data and then just look in your own company, you start looking at the attrition and why people are leaving. It's you need to flip that because the more you invest in your people, the more profitable you're going to be, and that's what gets missed. A lot of times, unfortunately, it comes like, okay, well, next person up, or well, I guess we'll just have to hire somebody. We'll make it work. Everybody just kind of put your head down and nose to the grind here, and do whatever it is that you do. And when we hire, we hire. Well, if you flip that and you actually treat your team members, we don't call them employees because they're team members, they're people. So if you treat your people as an actual person, then you get more buy-in. And then from that buy-in, you just get a lot of wonderful things that happen. You get more loyalty, you get more trust, you get more creativity, and then you get that longevity. And that's when you see that, it's so special when you see that click on a team, whether it's a team of a couple or a team of a lot of individuals. That's what's so unique about that people are prophets. And I just did a TED talk on this not too long ago in Tampa, Florida.
And is there certain practices that you and your team uh, leverage or use to keep yourself and your team from absorbing secondary trauma? Any protocol there?
It's hard, but it's more of listening to one another and asking questions. And the questions could be, I have no idea what the heck you're saying, Dan, or hey, can I get a little bit more clarity? But the ones that I really like are the ones that challenge, because as leaders, we'll think, oh, we figured this out. We got a great idea. I'm going to let my team know, and they're going to move forward and execute it. Well, it's more of, hey, this is what we're thinking. This is the issue I think it's going to resolve. And this is my hope on how it's going to make things better for you, or at least more efficient. But what are your thoughts? And 9.9 maybe out of 10, they'll have an idea that I didn't think of, or they'll say, hey, well, how about if we do it this way? And that's when I think that's just the uniqueness and the specialty. And you've got a really good team when they feel comfortable actually challenging or come in up with other ways or solutions.
So I did get some time as I was preparing for this podcast interview to listen to your podcast, right? So I can get the real story behind the story. So let's focus on I Now Pronounce You Divorced podcast for a second. I've got a couple of questions there. The first question that comes to mind is when someone arrives dysregulated, that's what they are, almost there, right? Blown up. What is the first sentence you say that reduces their threat without being overpromising?
It may sound simple, but what's worked for me is just saying hello, introducing myself, and asking them how they are. It sounds somewhat rhetorical, right? Because it's like going into a doctor's office, and the doctor saying, well, how are you feeling today? Well, if I'm feeling great, I wouldn't be here, kind of a thing. But it's just, adding that human element. So again, it's just not so transactional, just slowly chipping away at the barriers and establishing that trust.
So when we look at litigation, it can be a mindful choice or it can just be an ego tax that's happening with us, right? Do you have any recommendation or decision tree or for individuals to think through when litigation is truly mindful versus it's an ego?
I would say the attorney answer is it depends. And what I mean by that is each situation is unique. Why are we well, one, what are we litigating and why are we litigating? And it all goes back to that initial meeting with the client to get to know them, to know what are their true goals. Once you can break through a lot of the emotion and the anger and the anxiety that comes along with family law issues, okay, well, what is your ultimate goal? Do we really need to litigate to get there? And litigation is bad in the sense that it's, emotional, it's mentally taxing, it's financially taxing as well. But if you want to achieve something, maybe the only way to get there is to litigate. So I think that's a positive because you've identified your goal and it's a legitimate goal, and this is the only way that we can get there. Now, you don't want to litigate just to litigate, and that's where you hopefully start getting that trust between yourself and your lawyer to know that he or she has your best interest, and not just taking your case to litigate because it helps the law firm's bottom line. It's truly what is in the best interest of the client. And then you will have clients who say, I don't really care. I want my day in court. My spouse did this to me. I want to make them pay. And it's just really trying to walk them through what that really looks like after that day in court, because you can have your day in court, right? It's your constitutional right, sure. But you're going to be spending your hard-earned money, The court may not appreciate the fact that you're litigating something that you could have settled. And then you could potentially get an adverse ruling from the judge. And then there's just all that time and anxiety that's building up there while you're there and then waiting on a ruling. When if we can try to break things down, let's try to resolve it to try to get to your goal. If your goal is to see your kids more, do you really want to litigate and spend all that time and money that could be used for your kids? Or is there financial aspects that we need to litigate because your spouse is dissipated or left and kind of deserted you, and you need that financial security? And so we probably do have to litigate. But it's just walking the clients through, what does litigation mean? It's not what you see on television a lot of times on these shows that have great acting, but it's rare. I'd have to think long and hard of what I saw on television was really what happened in
Really?
court. Mine is literally having a judge there.
Yeah. So let's stay there for a second. When folks are going through this traumatic incidents in their life, is there any boundary script you provide your clients uh, to stay away from any kind of intrusive text or emails at midnight when they are influenced under alcohol or other chemicals, or just emotions, right? You can just get overwhelmed by emotions and you start texting and emailing without thinking about it. Do you have any boundary script recommendation for those situations?
I do, and you're right. It happens. Unfortunately, we're all human, but I always advise every client, pretend that the judge is on every text that you're sending, every email that you're sending, every post that you're doing, every picture or comment that you're liking. Pretend that the judge is right there and is copied on that as well.
Wow, that's a good one. Tell us about a story where a client shifted from revenge to resolution, and what really shifted that? What unlocked to move
You'd
from
be
revenge to resolution? Sorry.
Sure. No, no, no. You'd be surprised. It happens more often, fortunately, than you would think, but it doesn't happen a lot in the beginning because that's when the emotions are so high. Someone's either felt that they've been wrong or they want to get out for whatever reason, and so they have a lot of unrealistic expectations. But our job as practitioners is to break through those to really get at the heart of it all. Like, what is your true goal here, and then focus on that. And through time, the mind process will shift because we're all human. I mean, it's a grieving process. Essentially, you're going to be upset, then you're going to be disappointed, then you're going to be sad. You're just going to go through it all. But the point of having a counselor at law is to be able to talk to your attorney so he or she can start really guiding you through what that process looks like. But I'd say a lot of the times it may happen maybe around the middle of the case, except for those that have to be litigated. Then those emotions continue to run high.
What was the motivation behind Business Blueprint podcast?
Sure. We wanted to do a podcast that allowed us to be able to share what we've learned. And for me personally, is more sharing what I've learned from a lot of my mistakes. And I wanted to be able to have others at least identify, like, okay, yeah, I've been through that, or all right, so if that happens, this is what I need to do. Because success and growth doesn't come easy and it doesn't come the next day. And there's going to be a lot of bumps and bruises along the way. But we can turn those into a positive, and the positive is, okay, well, what did I learn from that? And just to try to make sure that we don't history repeat itself. But I really try to look at each situation as a learning opportunity. And we just want to be able to share that with others. And hopefully those who listen in can ask questions, and we can try to answer those on the podcast as well, because our listeners are phenomenal. They've got a lot of great questions that they submit to us. And so we're hoping to make it more engaging and collaborative.
Uh, would you like to share with my audience, just walk us through your weekly leadership meeting agenda and the one human check question, one decision rule?
Well, each leadership meeting is a little bit different, but I start every meeting out just asking, how are you doing today? So it's not just, okay, we log in or we're in a room. Okay, what are we doing? What's the agenda? Let's get to this. Let's get this connection going between us too. Because the more that we get to know one another, it does break down a lot of barriers, and you're developing that bond and that trust, and we're people. And so the more you enjoy and trust who you work with, I feel that you're just going to give more than 100%, and you're actually going to enjoy doing projects and working with your team. So it just starts out with the simple, how are you? And then it's, do you have any rock? I call them rocks and boulders. Rocks are little problems. Boulders are something that's like, okay, we probably need to figure out what the heck we need to do to try to stay ahead of this as best as we can. And then it's just going through the agenda, just making sure that they have what they need for the week, they have what they need for the month. We go over KPIs, where are we at, where are we trending for? And I end every meeting, what do you need from me? Because I really want these meetings to be for the team and I want them to get value out of it. I always say, I want you to make sure you get value out of these meetings because you're taking someone's time, which is a huge value. And so I want them to be able to take something away that they can apply that would help them. And sometimes the meetings are a little bit shorter, which is fine. But it's all I always start with how are you today? I always end what do you need from me?
So on the KPIs, if you could only track 5 numbers to run the firm, what would be there?
That's a good question. And KPIs are different because with us, and with a lot of companies, you have different teams and organizations that are under the umbrella of the company that track their own KPIs. But I think, what would be important for any company, these are in no particular order. I know others probably tuning in would think I'm crazy if I didn't say this, but it is revenues definitely, right? But revenue is just vanity. You definitely want to look at net profit to make sure that the company's making money. You want to look at attrition. I think that's always good as well because you really want to be able to gauge the success of the company on the people or the teams that you're growing. So I'd limit it to really those three, and then you can probably branch off from each one of those to get to certain KPIs.
So just like you talk about people over profit, you also mention in a couple of places values over velocity. So what was a short-term loss, long-term gain, compounding gain that you have a moment when you chose value over velocity?
It was looking at attrition and just wondering why. And this isn't the current firm, but I mean, it's my thought process here. But it's just what I've learned at the other place I was at was there's just a lot of attrition, and it just didn't make any sense to me. And then when you start really making decisions on values, then you have those like-minded individuals, those like-minded people who share those values. And when they share those values, they hopefully will feel valued and then they'll want to give more to your company or to their team. And so, it makes it long run a lot easier instead of just hiring for a band-aid. We hire for culture and values. And all of our interviews are tying everything into our values. Because if this person isn't going to be a good fit culturally, it may be a good fit temporarily, but long term, it's not. And I just don't want to jeopardize or compromise any one of our teams because I found somebody with a heartbeat that is willing to work, right? It never works out. I'm so
Right.
confident. And so tying everything back to our values is important to me.
So let's quickly talk about expanding that conversation of value. The client experience flywheel that you have from first touch all the way then becoming a referral for you. Where do emotions derail it most often?
They derail in the first meeting because the emotions are running high, and then you have expectations, whether they're legit, real, or unrealistic. And then you speak to the attorney who has to advise you, well, no, we can't do this because of X, Y, and Z, or here's your risk if you do this, or this is what we need to do. And it's just shifting the client's mindset on what they thought and what they really came in and hoped for. And so there's a lot of times that happens in the beginning. And then maybe halfway through, when we're trying to settle a case, it's hard to get others to see the bigger picture, to know that if we give here, we may be able to take here. And it's really just trying to resolve the case. Because when you go to trial, you're leaving it in the hands, in most jurisdictions, of a judge who doesn't have any real interest in the parties. They just have an interest in the docket and the case. And so they're going to make decisions, of course, according to the law, but that's it. To where when you have two individuals, hopefully eventually come to the table with sound mind that we can facilitate some form of a settlement. And unfortunately, the best settlements are when everyone walks out of there unhappy.
That's a good way of putting it. So again, staying with that life cycle with our customer, Uh, in your profession, in your company, I'm sure there are multiple team members playing different roles, attorneys, paralegal, intake, whatever it be. Do you guys have a handoff checklist that reduces rework and emotional leakage between the team members?
We make sure that everyone who's involved in the case is at their best from a mental standpoint so they can put their best foot forward. But we also make sure that whatever is discussed stays within that case. We don't have a checklist per se to where when someone goes in and meets with a client that they're checking certain things off. Now, the caveat to that is, of course, there are checklists when we need to be able to produce something or we have a strategy involved. So that may be. But as far as just making sure that we're not leaking or gossiping, we just make sure that we hire individuals who know that this is a professional environment and that they're treating all of our clients with respect. And that's one of our values is respect and professionalism. And so we don't want anyone coming in here wanting to do this type of law so they can kind of get the skinny or the gossip on what someone did or may not have done. And it really starts with having that professional, respectful mindset.
So trying to bring the two podcasts together, there is a lot of similarities. One is more on the business side, the other one is more on the individual side. Uh, are there any early signals for leaders to look within themselves uh, when it comes to empty nest and midlife transition before that hits their management style or their marriage?
Self-reflection and knowing where you're at in life, meaning if you're happy in your life, then hopefully that will translate into your work life, but making sure that there is that proper balance. I mean, the burnout can accelerate, but then also the burnout could hurt your team too. It is just really having those good, engaging communication with your team, but also knowing yourself and making sure you're taking time for yourself.
Wow. Any signals for our listeners to recognize those situations that they are actually getting into it?
You could look at if yourself, I would say, if you're not that excited to do something anymore, maybe you need to do a self-reflection. If you're finding yourself getting irritated or losing patience, maybe kind of take a step back. If you feel like you're holding your team back because either you've got a lot going on mentally or there's other priorities, again, taking a step back and refocusing and reshifting some things for your team. If you see others who are not really as that engaged anymore, then that's always kind of the first sign when someone who used to be coming to the meetings with just good energy and all of a sudden there's kind of withdrawn and laid back for whatever reason, might want to just take them aside and say, how are you doing? Always find walks outside of the office is good, just a different change of scenery, or go for a cup of coffee or something. Or someone is not performing well, just trying to figure out and ask questions. Hey, is everything okay? And then if someone is late to work all the time, that's always another sign that something else is happening, whether they've got another job that they're trying to get or something else personally is happening. And it's just having those conversations. And we do it too. We've allowed our team members to be able to take time for themselves because of personal issues that are happening. And we want them to know we're here for you. And I mean, we know it's a business, so we need to know, hey, well, how long are you thinking you're gonna be out so we can properly plan. But we want to make sure that our team feels supported, and not just supported within the company, but supported as much as we can outside of the company.
So, okay, now that we have gone through growth, conflict, transformation, and transition, what does leadership mean to you? And how is it different from when you started?
Well, when I started, I had no idea what leadership was. It was really probably more like management. And then as I was able to really just educate myself and see other leaders out there that I wanted to try to pick up on, and emulate what they do, I had a change of mind. And then being a true leader is somebody who wants to help lead a team and really see and identify the good in others and lift them up and help them grow. To me, that's what a leader is. They're going to put the needs and the betterment of the team in front of their own. And so it's not just a fancy title or other types of perks that may or may not go with being a leader. It's truly being invested in your team and wanting to see each person on your team not only succeed, but how can we grow them personally and professionally?
Staying there for a second, interesting. question for you, now that you have explained the leadership in a very unique way, I would say, that's a unique style. If tomorrow your title disappeared, your form was gone, podcast ended, who would Dan still be?
Hopefully, I would still hold true to my values, which is what brought me to where I'm at, but then also what has allowed me to continue to grow. I would have to take, as I was talking about earlier in our podcast here, just take a step back and do some self-reflection, and knowing that regardless of what is there or not, there was a great path that led to a lot of success, and I was part of that. And what can I do to take what I've learned and be able to apply it somewhere else?
So I've got three quick hitters for you. So the first one is a book, podcast, or mentor that shaped your leadership philosophy.
Oh, well, I don't know if that's quick. There's a lot of good ones out there. I've been a fan of either John Maxwell or Patrick Lencioni.
John Maxwell, 21 Laws of Leadership. I use that as a Bible every year. I read the whole book every year, no matter what, during Thanksgiving. Um, One word you hope your team would use to describe your leadership.
Oof. One word? Are you going to limit a lawyer to one word? I I would
Lawyers and physicians, that's the best question for them. Give them one word.
uh,
It's all
encourage.
right, just encourage. Okay. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Be patient, be more understanding, try to think more outside of just the environment that I was in at the time.
Wow. Uh, what I hear in you, Dan, is a man who choose people when profit are easier, who choose purpose when growth was urgent, and who is showing their team and the people that they touch that leadership is not about managing outcomes, it's about shaping identities, ours and others, right? So that's a message every leader needs right now. Would you want to make any comment for my listeners?
I would say one, I echo 100% what you just said. And being a leader is challenging, but it's so rewarding at the same time. And it's just I mentioned this in the TED Talk as well. It sounds so elementary and simple because we were taught this, back when we were younger, but treat others the way that you'd want to be treated. That's really what's been resonating in my mind as I've been fortunate enough to kind of go through the leadership path, is just reverting back to, the good old days of elementary school. Be kind to others and treat others the way you want to be treated. And that's just so important because you're going to come across individuals who may not understand something. Show them that understanding and that empathy and compassion. Or you may get upset at a certain situation. Well, know that me, myself, I'm going to make mistakes. So I wouldn't want somebody to kind of point that finger at me or yell at me. Okay, well, let's walk through it. This is why I did it. Help me learn from it. And so that's why I keep going back to treat others the way that you'd want to be treated.
As we wrap up the episode for the day, leadership is as much about how we show up for people in crisis as it is about building organizations. Dan, thank you so much for showing us both sides of the coin that today. Uh, Folks, you can reach out. I would highly recommend Dan's podcast, Business Blueprint, and now I now pronounce you divorced. We'll fix that. Um, the link will be in the notes section of the episode. Please visit that. Till next time, you're listening to Singh, Mindful Leadership on the Transformation Network. Go out, lead loud, lead proud. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for watching Mindful Leadership Transforming Lives. With me, your host, Singh. We are honored to have you join us on this journey to explore the transformative power of mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and authentic leadership. Tune in every week on transformationtalkradio.com at noon Pacific on Tuesdays, where we will continue to explore how mindful leadership can create a ripple effect of positive changes in your life and lives of those you influence. This show is dedicated to helping you lead with purpose, presence, and passion. Whether you're navigating the complexities of business, building strong connection with your team, or striving to make a meaningful impact in the world around you. To learn more about the show, access additional resources, or dive deeper, visit singhpowerupcoach.com. Remember, leadership isn't just about what you do, it's about who you are. Let's continue to transform lives together, one mindful moment at a time. See you next week.